To the 12 tribes of the children of Israel scattered abroad, in the name of Jehovah our Creator and Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the King who rules the world, Lily of the Valley here bringing you greeting. And today we're going to look at Noah's Ark, because a lot of the narrow-minded people of earth, they think some things are impossible. We already exist, and you see how great our mind is, and it's nothing compared to the mind of the Most High. If you want to see how we cannot answer a lot of questions, but we really can, look in the book of Judith, chapter 1. It tells you the history of man who can't even figure out themselves, much less they want to figure out the things of the Most High. But they want to know how Noah's Ark was able to gather up all the animals into the ark and so on. It's in the Bible, right? And first and foremost, when you want to ask these questions, go to Jeremiah 32 verse 27. Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? So the God of all flesh, he can gather the animals. They listen to him. If you look at the story when Christ came, the super gospel, when he went in with the animals and everybody thought he was going to die and he came right back out, he has control over all flesh. When he was making the birds from the dirt, and that's when he was playing, and then he spoke to the dirt and they became birds and flew away. He said nothing has been created that he didn't know of, and he is the living word. So the Most High has to just speak and things are, okay? So when it comes to Noah's Ark, let's see, Genesis chapter 6 tells you how and why. It says sin was multiplying upon the face of the earth, and it was a lot of things that were going on, and the wickedness. And so the Most High said he's going to get rid of all flesh except the righteous. So it was Noah, his 3 sons, and Noah's wife and his son's wife that went into the ark. Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their wives. That's after the flood. Remember, before the flood, all of this was prophesied by Methuselah, Enoch, and so on, even in the book of Adam and Eve. So if you want to go back into the earliest sources of writing, you still got to go back through the patriarchs, which the Hebrews descend from. The book of Adam and Eve, the book of Enoch, and you have the testament of the 12 patriarchs, because a lot of people fail to think that all this technology didn't come down through the line. Even in the testament of the 12 patriarchs, you have Zebulon as a haven of ships, or shipbuilder. That was his skill. All right. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah just a man, and perfect in his generation Noah walked with God. So when people say people cannot follow what the Most High asks of them, if it's just one of you or two of you or eight of you, the Most High notices that, okay? And it can be done. The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. So this is, make an ark of gopher wood, and the rooms thou shalt make in the ark shalt thou pitch it within and without. So you notice the ark had rooms, and it had various specifications. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall also be male and female. So those are going to repopulate the earth. Fowls after their kind, cattle after their kind, every creeping thing after his kind. Okay? And let's see. I think the clean ones they went in by 7s. And the Lord said unto Noah, thou and all thy house go into the ark, for thee I have seen righteous before me in this generation. And of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, the male and his female, and of the beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and the female. Of the fowls of the air by 7s, the male and female. So it goes into that in chapter 7. Now, what you want to know is capacity. The Most High, how did the animals get along? They all got along in the beginning, before the devil was turned into a snake, and he lost his voice. And not even all the animals lost their voice, because even today the parrot still talks. So if you want to read what happened in the beginning, go to the book of Adam and Eve. So if you want to know the capacity, look at even today the biggest cruise ships in the world, what their capacity is and the rooms they have. That didn't come from them. That technology didn't come from them. That technology came from Noah's Ark. If you want to know the capacity, look at the Chronicles of Jeremiah for building ships. Right? Look at the story of Akkad and the merchants. He had a ship that was like Noah's Ark with a whole bunch of rooms, with a whole bunch of goods on it. And that was his thing. He sailed upon the earth for months at a time. So the story of Elkanah the merchant, the son of Joseph, was a large export merchant and owned many vessels. He hailed from the province of the tribe of Dan and was exceedingly wise and pious. He passed the day in praying, maintaining the poor, and giving a helping hand to orphan boys and girls. By means of his great skill, he made a ship containing 60 chambers, of which each one of his servants made one for himself and his goods. In the center of the vessel he constructed a tower, which enabled him to see all his servants and their chambers, and all the rooms were placed far away from his, and his servants could not easily enter into their neighbor's compartment nor make any designs upon his property. So notice, for example, the ticks, the flies, and so on, all of those can hold on the wall. Ticks can travel on the back of the cows. So if you want to know the ticks and so on, what about the fish? Well, the fish didn't need to go on the ark because they were in the waters of the sea. Remember, the water of the sea can stay different from the water of a flood. We have floods all over the earth all the time, but the sea doesn't get flooded, and that does not affect the fish, the whales. So the creatures in the sea didn't have to be on the boat. If you want to know where the ark landed, it's landed at Ararat. So go into your Bible dictionary and look up Ararat. It says Ararat, high and holy ground, a mountainous district of Asia mentioned in the Bible in connection with the following events. 1. As the resting place of the ark after the deluge, Genesis 8 verse 4, as the asylum of the sons of Sennacherib, 2 Kings 19 verse 37. So you already see that the Shemites were already in that area. Okay, so Noah's Ark is considered to be in the land of Armenia, or they call it the land of Noah's Ark. The name Ararat was unknown to the geographers of Greece and Rome, and it is still to the Armenians of the present day, as it still is to the Armenians of the present day. But it was an ancient name for a portion of Armenia. In the biblical sense, it is descriptive generally of the Armenian highlands, the lofty plateau which overlooks the plain of the Araxes in the north of the Mesopotamia and of the south. Various opinions have been put forth as to the spot where the ark rested, as described in Genesis 8 verse 4. But it is possible that it rested on some of the lower portions of the range than on the lofty peak, to which exclusively Europeans have given the name Ararat. The mountain, which is called Mosaic by the Armenians, Agre Dagh, that is steep mountains, by the Turks, and Ku-inu, that is Noah's mountain, by the Persians. So it tells you where you can go and find these things. In Josephus' book, the Antiquities of the Jews, you can look at it. It says, concerning the posterity of Adam and the 10 generations from him to the deluge. Okay? Concerning the flood and after what manner Noah was saved in the ark, this goes into a lot more great information. Okay? And when God gave the signal, it began to rain. So all of this was prophesied from the beginning by the patriarchs, and the patriarchs were the righteous, and it's written down in all our sacred books, the flood, and you have the flood story all over the earth. If the other people who want to comment on the Bible were so great, they would have all the things written down from start to finish, just like the patriarchs did. We cover the earth from beginning to end, and from beginning to end, the whole earth is going to cover a 10,000 year period, with probably about the 7,500th year by now. So there's no millions of years anything that they can prove. There's no trees with annual rings of millions a year. The flood story and the bones you can find. Look about the bones of Noah's Ark. They have all these stories popping up all over the earth, you know. And they say they have found caves with bones everywhere. Now, before the flood, the earth was probably a different shape, and also after the flood, it's a different shape. You see islands appear and disappear all the time. You see cities that are sunk to the bottom of the sea all the time. You see Pharaoh's chariots in the bottom of the Red Sea. The Most High revealed them to Pharaoh's people when he chose to do it. So Noah's Ark is one of those great stories that people try to say it's not possible, but it is, because we still have big ships that sail the earth for months at a time and be able to feed and carry passengers and food and hospital and those things. So when Noah had made these supplications to God, who loved the man for his righteousness and granted entire success to his prayer, and said that it was not he who brought the destruction on a polluted world, but that they underwent that vengeance on account of their own wickedness, and that he had not brought men into the world if he had himself determined to destroy them, it being an instance of greater wisdom not to have granted them life at all, than after it was granted to procure their destruction. But the injuries, said he, they offered to my holiness and virtue forced me to bring this punishment upon them. All right. So this goes into great details, and now I have for witness what I have said, all those that have written Antiquities, both among the Greeks and barbarians, for even Manetho, who wrote the Egyptian history, and Berosus, who collected the Chaldean monuments, and Mocus and Hestiaeus, and beside these Hieronymus the Egyptian, and those who composed the Phenician history, agree with what I say here. Hesiod also, and Hecatius, and Hellenicus, and Acusilas, and beside these Ephorus and Nicolas relate that the ancients lived 1,000 years. But as to these matters, let everyone look to them as they think fit. So the flood story is in everybody's book. You have the Epic of Gilgamesh, and as you see, Josephus gave you a whole bunch of other historians who have records of it. We have records that the capacity of cruise ships today are built on Noah's Arks. We have records that Akkad the merchant, he had a ship with many compartments, that everybody got along their own business and it was not a problem, and that ship sailed for months at a time. Now the written barbarian histories make mention of this flood and of this ark, among whom is Berosus the Chaldean. For when he was describing the circumstances of the flood, he goes on, it is said there is still some part of this ship in Armenia at the mountain of Cordyaeans. So that's Cordyaeans, and that some people carry off pieces of the bitumen, which they take away and use chiefly as amulets for the averting of mischief. Hieronymus the Egyptian also wrote the Phenician Antiquities and Manaseas, and a great many more make mention of the same. Nicolas of Damascus in his 96th book hath a particular relation about them, where he speaks, there is a great mountain in Armenia over Minyas, Minyas, called Baris, Baris, upon which it is reported that many who fled at the time of the deluge were saved, and that one was carried in an ark, came on shore upon the top of it, and that remains of the timber were a great while preserved. This might be the man whom Moses, the legislator of the Jews, wrote. But as for Noah, he was afraid since God had determined to destroy mankind lest he should drown the earth every year. So he offered burnt offerings and besought God that nature might hereafter go in its formerly orderly course, and he would not bring on so great a judgment any more, by which the whole race of creatures